Welcome to the Studio 70 podcast. Our goal is for you to join in on real behind-the-scenes conversations about our projects and the people who make them happen. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Ryan Winters, for such an amazing introduction. You got Ryan Winters started on the narration station, didn't you?
We were making the Wreck of Echo 10-4 documentary, and we needed a narrator. But if it was me, it was going to sound too formal. And if it was like a student, like Chase or something, it would sound too like, who are you? But for some reason, Ryan seemed like he was going to be eloquent enough to narrate.
Even though he is a student.
He is a student. He was going to be eloquent enough to narrate, but so young you wouldn't feel condescended to. You'd be like, oh, like look at this guy narrating.
Yes, there's something endearing about his
He's
spirit.
older now.
Yes, so you'll hear from him at the end as well in our outro. I'm Austin Parenti, and you are?
I'm Tim DeMoss.
Thanks for joining us on the Studio 70 podcast. Our goal for this podcast is simply to give you a long-term, long-form, behind-the-scenes look at what we do. And maybe it can function as a nice little archival piece as well to chronicle our history, both the history we've already experienced and the history to come, which is strange to think about. But yeah, we understand this will be a little niche, right? I mean,
Very niche.
Not everyone's going to want to listen to
No.
30 minutes of us talking about
I was 30 minutes.
these. You said this was 15. But right, I mean, we make micro-budget movies for a high school.
Mm-hmm.
And we teach.
And we teach.
And what else do we do?
A lot.
So maybe if you're an educator, if you're a filmmaker, aspiring, either way, maybe this will be of interest to you. But yeah, figure this first episode, we just introduce ourselves. Tim, who are you? What might the viewer not know, even if they've seen Echo 10-4 and Flamingo? You know, tell us about yourself.
Sure. My name's Tim DeMoss. I'm 25 at the time of recording this. This is my 4th year teaching here.
Your senior year, some
my
might
senior
say.
year. I'm about to have been in this longer than I was at college, which is cool. I'm from Pennsylvania. I got bit by the filmmaking bug. I don't know how. I was just watching behind the scenes of like Pirates of the Caribbean, I think on DVD.
Which one?
The first one.
Really?
Yeah, just the BTS. I was like, Gore Verbinski's the man.
Yes.
And then behind the scenes of the Lord of the Rings, all 3, I got at like the thrift store and just watched them. And then I did a project in 10th grade on filmmaking, like as a possible career.
Oh,
and
like
then,
a bit like a business
like
project.
what's a career option. And I like remember I still have the PowerPoint. It's like, here are some directors, here's what salary you can make. And then I just was like, oh, that could be good. So I dropped out of school to be homeschooled to like do other school, and then started doing film and went to college and then ended up teaching. So I don't really know how I got here.
Tell us a little bit about what it's like having been homeschooled mostly, but your full-time job is teaching at an actual high school.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'll say, here at King's, if you're, I don't know who's listening to this, if you haven't seen, it's a pretty robust school to say the least. So there are a lot of extracurricular things like the film program, obviously, and so forth. So I don't know that I would have made the decision to go back to being homeschooled had I had a school that had kind of these facilities, but it was kind of, I wanted the opportunity to pursue those things. So I went home because I could at least organize my own time there. And we had like it was a nice school, but it was very small, the one I was going to. So they didn't have, I could have taken like a culinary class and that might've been it. So teaching, it has been a little bit of a learning curve. 4th year now, I kind of know some things like, rubrics and homework. I've heard about them now, as opposed to growing up where every year, this is not a joke, every year we would take a little binder of proof of my education, like the things I had done, and we would take it to this lady's house. She was really nice. She had chickens, and then she would talk to my brother about his school while I hung out with the chickens, and then I would talk to her while he hung out with the chickens, and I would just be like, here's some of the math I did. She'd be like, oh, seems good to me. And then I would get a report card.
So she was like an accreditor.
Yeah, basically. And
Wow.
it was legit. Like it wasn't a scam. Like we cared a lot about our education. Like I prepared those very well, but it was very loosey-goosey. So I mean, you knew me at PBA, so you I did okay. Like,
yes, you were great.
But there's some of this that I do not understand still.
That's so funny.
I'm still
God
learning.
is so ironic with us though sometimes, right? My mother told me I should be a high school teacher. She told me that since I was probably in 5th grade. And I told her, no, 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 no. She even put, I didn't know this until later, but on my application to PBA, my undergrad, she checked the box to minor in education. And until I graduated at PBA, that was actually reflected on my student thing, like an incomplete minor in education.
You never took the
No.
class.
And it was only in my last semester of my undergraduate year that I said, I certainly want to be a teacher, and probably for the rest of my life.
Wow.
My mom was right.
That's so fun.
And here I am in year 6. I was born in New York, Long Island, and my foray into filmmaking started actually when the video game Halo 3 first came out.
Yeah.
They introduced a theater mode where you could go back into your gameplay and make montages. That was probably the initial intention, but they actually had different focal lengths on the camera. And
That's
so,
crazy.
yeah, you like these young, they were probably like just coming out of their undergrad degrees. This generation of filmmakers in like 2007 who played video games were composing short films in Halo. And most of them were just quirky comedies making fun of the game. But some of them were like inspired by the movie 300 or Lord of the Rings. They were using Adobe After Effects to populate scenes with thousands of soldiers that was impossible to do in the game, and telling dramatic stories that as a kid I was just blown away by. And I thought to myself, well, I have Halo 3, I can make a movie. And so I tried and failed and tried and failed because there were so many limitations. I didn't know editing. I didn't know how to get your footage into a computer in the first place. But that was really my first foray, are those like unpublished Halo 3 videos. But then in middle school, I was assigned a project where we had to do something relating to history. It was super open-ended, but I asked if I could make a video. Guy said yes, and I took what I learned from Halo 3, used my mom's, handy camcorder, and made The Great Escape, the 1963 Steve McQueen film, I think.
Yeah.
We remade it in my backyard. And I actually at that point had figured out how to edit, had figured out how
Wow.
sound effects worked, and how to download illegal music, and
Right.
put it in
Skills
the
we
video.
use to this day.
Yes, very valuable skills. What a PNG is versus a JPEG.
Right.
And I showed my history class, and this teacher, Mr. Cuman, was blown away. And he showed all of his classes, not just like my class. He was like, look at what Parenti did in my 3rd period history class. And then for years later, I heard after I left the school that he was still showing it as like the example of what you could do.
That's a nice feeling.
Yes. Now I watched it again recently and thought, this is.
You still have it?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
send it to me,
I
please.
was so embarrassed.
Oh,
it's
okay.
awful. It's a 6th grader's work or 7th grader's work.
Yeah.
But then I realized, okay, well, maybe I could do something with this. So I continued with it through high school. But we didn't have anything like this. I mean, I went to a nice
He's
public
looking
school.
around the studio. For
Yeah.
those of you who are listening.
we didn't have technology or I had one film teacher in high school, and he was a fantastic guy. But here we have there are 4 film teachers on King's Academy's campus. And all of us, I think, are ready to help these young students succeed. So the resources here are just astronomically greater than most schools that I've seen anyway. So undergrad at PBA with you, Palm Beach Atlantic University, and grad school at Asbury. But that was after I had already started teaching here.
Yeah.
You hate when I bring up grad. Yes, I went to grad school. I'm so fancy.
For those of you listening, just so you know how fun and quirky I am, when Parenti framed his master's degree, I brought in my Reading Rainbow certificate of completion. I entered a Reading Rainbow Young Writers and Illustrators contest when I was 7. I think, and I did not win, but they sent me like a "you entered" kind of plaque, and so I have that hanging up next to his master's degree.
Yes, both very esteemed.
Truly, one of the artists at this school.
So, either you or me can go first. But the last thing I wanted to cover was maybe just a Studio 70 memory, something in the past 4 years for you, 6 years for me that just has stood out as a kind of wacky little symbol of what it's been like.
Are
here.
we going back to like the beginning?
It can be,
because if so, you should begin.
Oh man, I remember the first batch of students that we had in Film 3 when I first took over the program. There was Morgan Winters, Garrett Weisberg, and Ray Kolyakovo. And I told them that I believed we could make a short film. At this point, it had only been run and gun around the campus, produce little quirky comedies during class time. But I said, let's come in on a weekend, let's hire actors, and let's hire cinematographers, and let's make something that blows people away. And watching those 3 just bite into that, sink their teeth into it, and say yes to that craziness. It had never been tried here before. I was asking them to give up weekends of their time to come and make something amazing. So I'll never forget, first of all, just their willingness. But second, in the fall when we showed the finished product. We were in the choir room because it was during COVID and we couldn't use the theater and invite people in. So it was really just us and the students, right?
Yeah.
And we're watching this film unfold. I don't even think I watched the film. I think I just watched their faces, and they couldn't believe what they had just made. And they were so ready to get back out there and make something again and again and again. And so that was super, super special to me.
Yeah. So for a historical point of view, for those of you listening, again, if you don't know, there are now 4 full-time film teachers as well as other film people, yearbook, a lot of digital stuff going on here. But at this time, it was just you, and then there was yearbook still existed, but there wasn't so much collaboration between our departments.
Yeah.
So this is just, I remember I was at PBA still when this was going on, and I remember you and Sarah told me, or someone told me, that you guys were coming on the weekend to like build a spaceship set. And I was like, this guy's like, that seems like a little much. Like maybe he could just make some dumb little films. Like, you know, he's just a teacher. And then obviously I was hired. I was there at that fall showcase and I got to see it. And I was like, oh, these are kind of, you had a pirate film and a space film, which I guess we'll probably go into the detail of those more later. But favorite memory of mine I'm going to pick it from the first year before King arrived. So just when it was just me and Parenti, this isn't a good memory. This is a very visual memory, so it's not probably very good for the podcast. But
Paint the picture.
My first day teaching here, Parenti, you were on a thingy. You were filming like a volleyball game in Tennessee or Kentucky.
I was in Kentucky doing
for his
a
master's
broadcast
degree.
Yeah.
And so my first week of teaching, you were gone. Doing something else. So I was the only one in the department. Anyone would come in and ask me for something, like I'd be like, you look like a real person. You have a tie. I don't know. Am I supposed to do this? Who are you? Are you my boss? I don't know. I have, like, you know, I had only been hired for like a week. Like,
and this was your first job.
My first job out of college.
Yeah.
I had never been a teacher. I was also teaching photography, which I had not studied. Wild. I felt like Leo DiCaprio and like Catch Me If You Can. Just like I'm a teacher. Truly. But my very first day, third period, it was COVID. I had tried out one of the face shields, you know, where you like would strap it around your head and then it had glass or whatever, plexiglass in front of your face.
I thought you were talking about a face mask, like the thing for acne. I was like, what?
No.
Right. Okay. Back to COVID.
Back to COVID. Yeah. The shield. I had been wearing only the masks for a while, and I tried the shield right before third period started because I thought surely I want them to see my face. And I just thought it would be good to try the mask out right then. And a bunch of kids walk in. It's first period. They start doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I've never done that. I realized I didn't know it. Like
my gosh.
All these kids are standing up. I can't see their mouths. I'm the only mouth you can see because I've got a clear plastic shield, which, by the way, messes up your hair and makes you sweat. So I'm sweating. I don't know the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm like, whose first day of school is this? Theirs or mine? Like, I have no idea what's going on. And then it turns out whatever PowerPoint I had made, like, that gets you through like 11 minutes of class. Do you know how long classes are? I do now. 50 minutes. So the only thing that got me through that was Miss Corbett, was your sub. So she was like sharing the room with me back and forth, and she would always say like very nice and sweet things and was just really kind. So that was okay. But Natalie Gettleman was in that very first period.
Whoa.
And it was her first day at King's as well.
No,
she was a freshman.
And she didn't drop the class.
She didn't drop the class. So apparently I must have been like, okay.
Wow. And Natalie is now a senior, and she directed Star Wars Great Trials Chapter 7, the finale.
Michael O'Leary was a freshman, not his first day at King's, but he was a freshman in my fifth period class.
That very semester. Oh my gosh.
That same day. So, and he asked me 2 weeks later, he was like, do you even have a teaching degree?
No.
And I said, I do not.
Oh my gosh. He's like, yeah, I could tell.
Yeah. He's super. Yeah. So I just remember Natalie, she's going to graduate, you know, in a couple months. She was there on my first day in my first class of the day, which was the first period. So I was her first ever King's Academy class, was me not knowing the Pledge of Allegiance.
Wow.
And she didn't drop out. I don't know how much agency she had over that choice or not, but
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And for Michael O'Leary to be in your film 1 class that semester, and now had directed Star Wars Great Trials Chapter 6 and is a graduating senior. Well, this is a very special year for you then, to say goodbye to these kiddos.
One Michael memory from film 1. They had to do a short film, like, you know, the classic, just you have to use some different shot sizes, edit it together, 1 minute, no dialogue, whatever. So his was called The Fire Escape. It was a tragedy. Sophia Willingham noticed there was a fire in the scene, then couldn't get out, and then she died. That's the beginning, middle, and end. And he's on the floor getting like a low angle shot of her running away, and he is calling her back. He's like, hey, we gotta do that again. And he's like, I can't feel like the fear. And I'm like, Michael, I'm not really grading you on like emotional reactions, but now you can see it, right? Like in his Grey Child's directing and all that. It's like,
he always took it seriously, and man, and it's profited him. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, a great introduction. Thanks for joining us today. And I hope this gives you kind of a feel of what we're looking to do in this podcast. Me and Tim will be hosting, and we'll be bringing in Phil King and others accordingly. So
thank you so much. This is fun. I did enjoy it, although I'm sweating now. It's bringing back memories.
Excellent. And on that note, you guys have a great week.
Thanks again for joining us today. If you enjoyed our content, consider subscribing. Studio 70 is a division of the King's Academy, a K-12 private Christian school in West Palm Beach, Florida. For more information, visit studio70.tv or tka.net.